everyone, and welcome to 10-Minute Elections. Today is Monday, November 30th, 2020, as this is going to be my last recap video for the 2020 election cycle besides the Georgia runoff elections. That'll obviously come in January once we're done with that. We are going to be talking about the House of Representatives elections, how those went down, and what this means for both parties. First, before we get into it, of course, 10-Minute Elections is on Instagram. 10-Minute Elections, all lowercase, all one word. And if you would like a shout out in the next video, all you have to do is follow 10-Minute Elections on Instagram, subscribe to the channel, and comment below your answer to who was the most recent president to enter the White House without control of Congress. For example, Donald Trump did have control of Congress because he is a Republican president, and when he entered office, the House and Senate were both Republican controlled. Who was the last president where this was not the case? You follow my Instagram, subscribe to the channel, and comment your answer. You will get a shout out in the next video, which will cover the Georgia Senate runoff elections. Now, I'm not on Yap MS for this video just because it would have been extremely time-consuming and probably not as informative to fill in every single district with its margin. So instead, I'm just on the New York Times page today. These are the 2020 House election results, and I know a lot of people have been saying, oh, these elections were a disaster for Democrats. And granted, they were expected to pick up 1 or 2 seats. They've lost, when all is said and done, probably about 10. But ultimately, 10 seats is technically within the margin of error for a House election, and a lot of these races did fall within their respective margins of error. But I would say, judging by what JHK was forecasting as well as a plethora of other pollsters, this is about the 15th percentile for Democrats, what they could have won on a scale from 0 to 100 percentiles in terms of how good the elections were for Democrats. This is probably the 15th percentile for them and the 85th percentile for the Republican Party. So a decently solid election cycle for the Republican Party overall, not just in the House. That said, the expectations were extremely low. So the fact that they're favored to win the Senate at this point is a massive victory. Now, Nancy Pelosi is still going to be the Speaker of the House, but it is true that she doesn't have the majority that she was expected to. So let's dive into some of the races that flipped. First thing, Yvette Harrell defeated Xochitl Torres-Small, who was elected in 2018, and New Mexico's 2nd District, as you can see, I've been talking about this one a lot, actually, in recent videos. It's the entire southern half of New Mexico, and it is a very, very rural. The entire state is, and fairly Latino as well. The ruralness of New Mexico generally bucks the trend of conservatism, and it voted very Democratic in the last few elections. Hasn't gone red since 2004 when George W. Bush beat John Kerry in the state. Now, Yvette Harrell she is a woman of color. This was a race of 2 women of color, and Yvette Harrell is a fairly standard conservative in terms of policy. She is pro-life and whatnot, generally fairly socially conservative. So she will make up the New Mexican congressional delegation along with Deb Haaland and Teresa Lega Fernandez, who won easily in the 1st and 3rd districts. Another one that flipped was the 4th district of Utah, which Ben McAdams, a Democrat in the deep red presidential district, was expected to win narrowly. Burgess Owens, the former NFL star, actually did edge him out here. Ben McAdams was a very centrist Democrat. Ben McAdams was a very centrist Democrat. Burgess Owens is a fairly standard conservative, again, in terms of policy, very strongly backed Donald Trump, and we can expect to see him continue to do so even as Donald Trump leaves the White House. Republicans have flipped multiple districts here. In a rematch from 2018, Young Kim did defeat Gil Cisneros. Cisneros won this race against Young Kim by 3 points in 2018, but not this time, as Young Kim wins by 1.2 points. In the 39th district, also David Vallado. This is another rematch from 2018. TJ Cox won this seat in 2018. David Vallado will now win it back for the Republican Party. Mike Garcia. This was originally Katie Hill's seat, a Democrat representative in 2018, but she resigned over a scandal with a campaign staffer, an aide, and so Mike Garcia won the ensuing special election by a surprisingly large margin. That said, this time this race is much closer. Obviously, it's 0.12 points right now, and not all of the vote is quite in yet, so this race could conceivably go either way. And I believe this is the only uncalled one in California. The other big one, again, was David Villato's seat, but that was called, as you can see, fairly recently, just the past couple days. Another very close seat, Marionette Miller Meeks and Rita Hart. You can see they are literally at this point separated by 32 votes out of nearly 400,000 in the second congressional district of Iowa, and only 89% of the vote is even in. So I'll call this race a genuine toss-up. I think, especially with the mail-in votes coming in, we don't really know where they're coming from, but obviously 32 votes could definitely go either way, and even one batch of ballots at one polling location could easily change that outcome. Now, point of interest in Iowa, I'm sorry, my computer froze for just a second. Ashley Hinson was actually the least likely Republican to win, aside from Randy Feenstra in the fourth, which he won easily. The ways Iowa's congressional districts are constructed, there is one safely Republican district, the northwestern part of the state, and the other three are all Democratic leans or tilts, or at least that's what we saw in 2018 when Abby Finkenauer, Rita Hart, and Cindy Axne all won their races. Cindy Axne was actually the most likely of those three, according to polling data and demographics, to lose her seat, and her race was actually declared the earliest for a Democrat. Ashley Hinson actually flipped Abby Finkenauer's seat, which was the most likely in the state to stably. New York, we still have some outstanding races. Representative Anthony Brindisi, as the mail-in votes have been coming in from the 22nd District of New York, has been slowly but surely closing the gap against challenger Claudia Tenney. And in the 24th District, John Katko, I know this is showing this is an uncalled race. John Katko has won this one. He's the incumbent, and these margins show that he will win easily. So those are the only two uncalled races in New York, actually. Nancy Mace narrowly flipped Joe Cunningham's seat, and you'll see two flipped Democratic seats in North Carolina, but that is only because the state Supreme Court ruled that their extremely gerrymandered Republican map was unconstitutional, and so the districts were redrawn, which gave Democrats, it essentially flipped two seats from solidly Republican to solidly Democratic. Another district of interest, the North Carolina District 11, which is the westernmost district in the state. Madison Cawthorn and Mo Davis appear to be locked in a close race, and they were. It was heavily campaigned upon, and a lot of money came from a lot of other places. Ultimately, Madison Cawthorn will become the first representative that was born in the 1990s to serve in the U.S. House of Representatives, or Senate for that matter. And this is the lone actual Democratic flip of the seat, because the North Carolina ones, I mean, technically they count, but they don't really in terms of electoral performance. Carolyn Bourdeaux was not expected to win this one, but Georgia did go blue on the presidential level very narrowly by 0.3%, and Carolyn Bourdeaux actually won this race over Rich McCormick, who obviously was favored to win by almost 3 points. So it was a 10,000 vote margin. Carolyn Bourdeaux, I obviously wouldn't say won convincingly. That's a 10,000 vote margin, but just the fact that she won it all in a map where Democrats were getting beaten across the board is very interesting. That amid what was generally considered to be an extremely bad map for Democrats, Carolyn Bourdeaux actually found a way to pull out a race that she was not expected to win. The other flip, I think the only flips I haven't hit yet, Michelle Fishback easily defeated Democratic Representative Colin Peterson. Peterson, a member of that conservative Blue Dog Caucus. He was a 16-term representative, I believe, and his time was just coming to an end in one of the most pro-Trump districts in the country. The 3rd Congressional District of Michigan, Peter Major won by 6 points over Hillary Scholten, no incumbent there. That was an open seat. And this was a surprise. Carlos Jimenez actually flipped, Debbie McCarcel-Powell's seat. McCarcel-Powell, that seat wasn't really too much on the radar. I was expected to go not by a huge margin, but decently into that Democratic column. And this was really a down ballot effect of the extraordinarily poor showing by Democrats in Miami-Dade County. Yeah, they won the county on the presidential level, but they ran a good 10 points behind Hillary Clinton, and the state actually went redder in 2016 it went in 2016 by multiple points, despite Joe Biden actually overperforming Hillary Clinton and doing more than what he needed to win in the entire rest of the state. And that just manifests itself as the Southern Florida House seat was flipped from Democrat to Republican control. All right. Thank y'all for watching so much. It's been a pleasure making these videos, and I really look forward to continuing to do so. Again, if you want that shout out in the next video, I will be shouting out everyone who does this, I promise. Just follow the Instagram, subscribe to the channel, and comment who was the last president to go into the White House without united control of Congress. I will see y'all then, and stay safe.